Hello, so on this episode, or these episodes of Mathematics, we're going to talk about domain and range. The last time we spoke about domain and range, we were specifically talking about relations and domain and range of graphs that we call discrete graphs, meaning they're not continuous. So today, we're going to talk about some graphs that are continuous and talk about the domain and range. The domain and range for a continuous graph is a little bit tricky, okay? Domain and range of these types of graphs are written usually as inequalities or interval notation, essentially compound inequalities. And if we call compound inequalities, especially the and, okay, you could technically have some or involved in domain and range type graphs. We won't really be dealing with some or situations. We'll mostly be dealing with and situations with our domain and range for Algebra 1. But your compound inequalities, let's say, is between a less than or equal to our values of x less than or equal to our value of b. So the values of x are all lie in between a and b, okay? And a and b represent any number, okay? That's just an arbitrary, it's a variable. That's what we use variables for, so that we can talk about something in an abstract manner. That's why we have algebra. Okay, so for domain is your x values, all right? And it will always be your x values. It will always be the values that are left to right. Okay, so if you scan your pencil from left to right and identify the x values in which you are touching the graph, okay? Now the range is the y values in which you're going to take your pencil up and down. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a couple of things here, and I'm going to look. It's going to be easier specifically on number 2 first. Let's talk about number 2 first. Okay, so I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to highlight in yellow. Now, and I'm also going to talk about this value here, all right? If I'm taking my pencil, let's do this, hold on. If I'm taking my pencil, and this is representing, the highlighter is representing my pencil, all right? So as I'm coming along here, I'm coming along here, and I'm not hitting my graph anywhere in this region, okay? But now, right along this section in here, I'm hitting my graph. All of these values, I'm hitting some x value on my graph, okay? And then I'm hitting, and then I stop. And then as I go out here, I'm not hitting my graph, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and erase those sections that I'm not hitting my graph, okay? Now, I'm also going to talk about how the line of the graph is a solid line, and then the line that we're given. Okay, sometimes these sections, these lines will be open. Remember, like if we have a number line and we have an inequality, and let's say it's x is greater than 2, okay? That's not including 2. So when we would graph this, we would typically draw a line, and I would say 2, and I would leave an open circle. So that means that 2 is not included. Now, those are our domain values. So I want to look, as I'm going left, I want to specifically look at that point, the point where I'm going along and I hit that graph, that outermost edge. I want to look at the smallest value, okay? And that smallest value in this case is going to be -3. And I'm going to put x. So x is in between -3. Then I'm going to go along, I'm going to take my pencil along the right, and I'm going to go over here to where I hit +3. So x is in between -3 and +3, right? Now, since it's a closed circle, I'm going to go ahead and make these equal to, right? Now we're going to talk about our range. Our range is the y value, so I'm going to put y in the middle. And I'm going to look at my lowest. My lowest is going to be down, all right? Now I'm going to do a different color, so let's do blue. So if I'm taking my pencil along here, I'm not hitting my graph until this section right in here. Okay, and as you can see, it's green. And then the maximum section that I'm going to hit over here is up at the top. And all of my y values are going to fall in between these two minimums and maximum, okay? Now, so the green section that I've shaded, so the blue represents the up and down, and the yellow represents the left to right, okay? But where they turn green, where they overlap, those are representing all of the possible values of x and all of the possible values of y. No matter where I go, if I'm following along this line or this circle, because I have infinite many points in the circle. So no matter where I'm hitting an x and a y value between -3 and 3, and then my y value, my minimum value, that point there is -3, and then my maximum value is +3. So it's going to be less than or equal to, okay? So that is how you do domain and range. Now, number 1 is a little different because we have these arrows. Let me highlight those. Those arrows means that they continue on to infinity. So it means that my arrows are keeping going past this window graph. Now, if you notice, it's getting wider and wider, right? So if I'm taking my pencil left to right, if I'm taking this pencil and I'm coming along, I'm drawing my pencil, I'm coming along here, I'm always hitting my graph. I'm going left to right, left to right. I'm going to be hitting some x value of my graph because that arrow is going on to infinity. So my domain in this situation is all real numbers. Okay. Now my range, however, if I notice this little spot right there, that is the coordinate point 0, -2. Okay. Well, if I were to take my line, let me draw a vertical. Oops. Ooh, that did not work. Okay, so we're not going to be able to do that. Never mind. We're just going to wing it. I'm trying to visually show you on here. So if I'm taking my graph, my going up, all right? I'm going up here, taking my pencil, and I hit my graph there at -2, all right? So I know that I'm going to have a y value of -2, all right? So I'm going to have y. Now, if I notice as I'm going along and I'm going up, I'm going to be hitting the graph because our graph, these arrows, say that it goes on forever. So I'm going to be hitting the graph. So this gives us the inequality of y is greater than or equal to -2. All right? And that pretty much covers the basic of domain and range. I'm going to continue in the next video doing some other example problems to show you what they look like. I strongly recommend that you try to do these on your own as well. See you then.